Today I'm gonna show you how to make this. I'll probably think of a name when I'm naming the YouTube video, but call it whatever you want. I'll probably name it like Roses and Lace, Guns and Roses. No, that's trademark. It started off trying to make something I did better 8 hours later. Yes, it's better, but it's 8 hours. If you want to go ham and go as crazy as I did, you're probably going to be here for 8 hours or more. But come on, how cool is this? I did this about a year ago. I loved it, and I did it again. I wanted to make a tutorial on it this time, and I'm even more happy. I did like the little, I'll show like a picture right here somewhere, but I'm gonna, I did a, can't talk tonight. I'm all loopy from being here for so long. So no more horsing around, let's jump right into the video. Let's get started.
Woo, yeah, we're gonna start off with painting our face white. I also painted my hair white. You can either use body paint or colored hairspray you can find at any Halloween store or Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon. And I'll be honest, if you choose to do body paint on your hair, it'll take a little longer, it's a little more tedious. But I didn't have that fancy hairspray, so I had to work with what I got. Besides, the hairspray is a little messy, so I guess there's pros and cons to both ways. And now I sketched out the roses. I'll try to explain the best I can how to draw roses. Starting in the center, draw 2 tiny oddly shaped ovals, then drawing petals around those ovals, and then drawing petals around the petals, and then drawing petals around the petals, and then drawing petals. You get the idea. But generally the petals will be getting bigger the further you branch out, and every rose is unique, so don't make every petal the same. Some will be big, some will be small, some will be wide, some will be pointy, some will be floppy, some will be round. Damn, I'm starting to sound like a Dr. Seuss narrator. But that's the cool thing about making roses. My roses will never look like yours, and yours will never look like mine. It's like a fingerprint in the shape of roses. But if all else fails, just look at a reference. Sorry, you can't see this rose from this angle, but I'll be adjusting the camera angle later. But I swear, I'm doing the same steps on this one too. And now I painted the inner edge of almost every petal red. I mean purple! Red is for later, don't be listening to me. And I say almost every petal because I saved some of the petals for another color. And I left the outer edge of every petal alone for the bright teal color. And as you can see, it'll look more purpley as you get more toward the center. And some petals can have more purple than others. At this point, I used a slightly damp brush and dragged out that purple color. To avoid those harsh lines, I suppose you would call it blending. You think purple is enough to make a rose? Wrong! I'm now adding teal to the outer edge of every rose. Now I used a fairly dark purple eyeshadow to shade the inner parts of every petal. The rose will start to look darker as you get more toward the center at this point, but just you wait until we add black. Don't worry if you cover some of the teal and purple, we can fix it later. And we will. Okay, moving on to black. Be very careful to add little at a time. You can keep adding and adding more black, but it's hard to take away black if you add too much. You're just ever so slightly outlining all the petals. You can see here how much black will make a difference. But now we're finally moving on to the highlights. I slightly watered down the white paint to make the teal colors a little brighter. Now using the finest, smallest detail brush I could find, and I outlined a little bit all the petals with black paint. You should barely be able to tell the difference between the black eyeshadow and the black paint. This is the part where you'll be fixing the rose and adding colors that may have been lost in the black eyeshadow and / black paint. And once you're satisfied with all your colors, use the purest of white paint and just go crazy with the highlights. And if that wasn't bright enough for you, you can use the NYX white liquid eyeliner and do some more highlights. And at several parts of the rose, I added little white dots for dewy drops. This is the part that will really make that rose pop. I used a lot of the colors that I used on the rose, including purple, blue, teal, and then some pink, and just made a lot of lines and swooshes and just made it look like the rose is on fire. And you can use as much or as little colors as you want. And the teal eyeshadow I used wasn't quite bright enough for me, so I used teal body paint. And with black paint, I outlined the whole rose and imitated the lines and swooshes I did with the rainbow eyeshadows I just did. It'll kind of look like the lines are kind of branching out from the rose. It'll look cool. With a small baby detail brush, I defined a little more the branches. I'm gonna call them branches. Let's just call them branches. And made more lines and dots around those branches. And once you're done with that, congratulations! You made it past the first rose. And the next rose is exactly the same steps, except for the darker color of each petal, I'm using red. This step is optional, but I used yellow to fill in the rest of the parts of the petal. It's going to be covered up by orange eventually. It may show up through the orange a little bit, but you really don't have to use yellow. And just like with the other rose, I used a slightly damp brush and just pulled out the red color a little more and blended it out. I used a Graftobian neon orange paint and used it on the outside of every petal in the rose. With this rose, I started shading with the red eyeshadow, and then I went in with black. Just remember to use a little bit black at a time and build up from that. And outline the darkest parts of the rose with black paint. Remember to use the smallest, tiniest brush you can find. You still want your rose to be bright and colorful. And use slightly watered down white paint and highlight all the edges of the rose. And then outline that with straight up white paint. And then use that white liquid eyeliner to make the brightest highlights on the rose and make the little dewy drops. Seriously though, this is my favorite part of the whole thing, and just paint my whole face with these eyeshadow colors. It kind of makes me look like a watercolor painting. But with this one, I just used like a yellow, orange, red, a little bit of pink. Just go crazy with it. Make it look like you're on fire. And then make those Maleficent-like branches. And I didn't quite make the two sides of the branches quite touch each other. They're just there to chat. They're just in the friend zone, but they're not quite touching. Actually, I had a cool idea in outlining my lips just a little bit. And if it looks cool, you could even do that with your eyes. Second rose, done. Now I move on to the rest of my body. I covered everything else in white paint. And I'm starting off the big lace collar by outlining where I exactly want it to be and what shape I want it to be. There's no really special way I can tell you how to draw lace, other than just looking at a reference and a few references actually, and going off from that. For me, I looked at references of rose lace, and the only rule about lace is make sure everything is connected somehow, otherwise in real life it would just fall off. These little lines I'm drawing behind the roses, I'm calling filler lines. And you want the roses to be a lot darker than the filler lines, because then the filler lines will outshine the roses, which is not good. And I didn't spend a lot of time on the filler lines, I just made a lot of random lines that kind of resembled spider webs. Otherwise, we'll be here for a long time. And I did the exact same thing on the other side. Don't be too discouraged if you don't get it exactly the same on the other side. It's almost inhumanly impossible unless you're a supercomputer. But that just makes it look more lacy if it doesn't look even. Just treat them like your eyebrows. Make them match, but they're not twins. And then paint the same roses you did on your face. I kind of switched sides for the colors, just for interest. But by the end of this, you should be an expert at painting roses.
It's midnight and I gotta go to bed. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye! Oh. Come on, it's gotta be the cutest box you've ever laid your eyes on. Oh. Diamond!